healing. Healing our 7 bodies. We all want to be healed, especially when we feel pain in our physical body. It's like the messenger that something needs to change. But in actual fact, we're much more complicated than just a physical body. We actually have 7 bodies, and we're a complex interrelationship. So holistic healing is really about addressing all of the 7 bodies, because that which ends up in the physical body is really the end of the road. It started much higher up, usually in one of the other bodies, one of our higher vibrational bodies. Of course, there are some things that do start in the physical body, bad air, bad water, bad food. Superficial conditions can be addressed solely in the physical body, but deeper conditions and certainly organ conditions start much higher up. So the aim in this video is to present you with a model of the 7 bodies of our constitution and the healing processes that are required for each one of these bodies, so that we get a strong and clear understanding of holistic healing, because it's a word that's sort of thrown around a lot. So let's start here. We start here with the highest of our bodies, the highest vibrational body, because the higher vibrations determine the lower vibration. That's just a law of physics, but it's also the truth of our physical bodies and our constitution. So we start with the being. Now, at the center of the being is the will, and the will sets the vibration for the whole body. Everything is created out of intentionality, which is our will. I will do something, I will not do something, I choose this. And that's why we put so much emphasis on freedom of choice, because all karmas, all consequences for us individually start with our will. And it's something that's very respected even in British law. We don't just have murder, we have willful murder, we have manslaughter, which wasn't intentional. So consequences depend on the will. And if our will is out of sync with the laws of the universe, the light, the magnetic electric motion that's always upright, balanced, equipoised, and flowing with compassion, then we will suffer by the misdirection of the energies through other bodies, right down to our physical body. So here we have this splendid notion of the will. And the will is at the center of our being. It's also the home of the reason, or what we might call the spirit. Could be said to be the Holy Spirit, because it is the spirit, the highest, the best of who we are. It's the human spirit too, but individually it's your unique manifestation of the human spirit. So here it is critical that the will be aligned with the highest light. And I read to you from this beautiful book, Spiritual Healing, which I highly recommend to anyone. It's a publication of the Order of the Cross, wanting to have a holistic spiritual understanding. And I'm going to read from the will. So it's really important to understand this, because it all starts from the will. And I read, when the will is healed, it is full of the willinghood to be even as the will of the Father Mother. Then the glorious substances which have been hurt unto atrophication are revitalized. There is a renewal of polar action produced through the overshadowing of the presence, and the resultant effect of the presence upon the being's divine magnetic pole. We often have that wonderful breathe on me breath of God. Until with thee I will one will to do and to endure. Let us now move from the will to the soul life. Now the soul life is, so to speak, the alembic and the crucible of so much that flows down into the rest of our bodies, and particularly our physical body. Now in the soul life we have 3 major qualities. We have perception. It is the capacity to perceive truth, not to be taken over by delusion, ignorance. And the capacity to perceive the truth depends on the degree in which our will, our magnetism and our polarity, our spiral is aligned with the divine light. So when the perception is accurate, we have health and well-being. It also depends on our intuition. Now, the intuition is the storehouse of the entire of the soul's experiences. It's the storehouse of everything we've ever had, good, bad, indifferent. All of our great spiritual initiations are stored in the intuition. And in the intuition also is all of our crucifixions, our sufferings, our shadow states through the great ages of our incarnations. And when we think of our intuition and the healing of the intuition, we're thinking of some really profound movements here to heal the soul. For many of us, the intuition is blocked off for our own goodness and our own safety. But as we become spiritually awake, the doors open, and we must heal our soul life by moving from despair to hope, from betrayal to trust, and from self-recrimination to self-forgiveness. Because as these doors of the intuition flood open with all the memories of the many existences we've had, we have to stand strong in the qualities of trust, hope, and self-forgiveness. And then as we move here, when the intuition is open, the perception is true, then the understanding can be balanced. And when the understanding is balanced and it lights up like a sun, it illumines us and it gives us the true vision and the true perception of ourselves, the world, and the universe. And as our understanding is illumined, we make skillful decisions for our health and well-being, both in our spirit, in our thinking, in our feeling, and in our very physical activities upon the earth. And so there is a great deal of healing to occur in our soul life if we are to experience healing in the physical body. Let us now move to the higher mind. When the illumination is lit up as a result of the healing of the perception and the balancing of the intuition, when the soul life is lit up, then the higher mind becomes a repository of wisdom. And we are no longer living in delusion, ignorance, hatred, or any other state of blurred vision, of misdirected vision. We see truly and we perceive the truth. We are not pulled this way by this philosophy or that way by that philosophy. We stand upright and we stand balanced. And the higher mind gives us a place of equipoise so that the breath may flow freely through into all of our 7 bodies, because all dis-ease is that the breath is blocked from flowing with ease through all of the 7 bodies. We move from the higher mind now to the etheric body. And the etheric body is where the breath flows and carries the emotional life streams. It is really the body of the heart. The systolic and diastolic motions of the heart represent the in-breathing and out-breathing, the electrical and magnetic forces of the universe that flow through all of the 7 bodies. And when our heart has been hurt, as it has been in many, many, many lifetimes for many, many of us, if not all of us, then these streams are greatly disturbed. And in fact, if the etheric body has been wounded grievously, life after life is lived in continuous burden bearing and suffering and sorrow and physical affliction, which we can't quite put our finger on because the causes don't seem always to be in this life. And the healing of this beautiful body is really the restoration of the heart, of the love principle, that it may be safe to open again, that it may feel the influx of divine healing, be repolarized, rebalanced, so we can fully breathe in and the systolic and diastolic motion may be renewed. And let us remember that disturbances in the mind The higher mind will affect the heart. Also, disturbances in the lower mind will affect the heart, and vice versa. Disturbances in the heart will affect the health of the mind. And so we must understand these things. We move then from this beautiful etheric body, and much healing is needed with the etheric body. It is also the body of water, body of rhythm. So being in nature, in water, in fresh air, particularly connected to water, will do a great deal to heal the etheric body. And then let us move to what is known as the lower mind. Now, we all know about the lower mind. The lower mind often doesn't have much ease or peace. It's often afflicted by fear and worry and regret, judgment, criticism, self-condemnation, all sorts of states. This lower mind, often known as the monkey mind in Eastern philosophy, because it's always jumping around and it's the source of so much of our discontent, so much. It's like sticky. It wants to stick onto this and stick onto that, then it doesn't like that and it doesn't want this. The lower mind, when not under the guardianship of the higher mind and the soul particularly, and the being and the will, is the cause of much of our ill health, much of our accumulated states of distress and disturbance come from our lower mind, our over-attachment to permanence, to wanting things never to change, to thinking people should be better than they are. The lower mind uses a range of defense mechanisms, which psychology is full of, but the major one is projection, blaming other people for everything around you that isn't right, and not dealing with your own inner life. Because holistic healing is about taking everything back to yourself, to all of these 7 spiritual bodies, and asking, how can I change? How can I be different? Rather than blaming others and pointing fingers in other directions. And so the lower mind is also unfortunately afflicted a great deal by metallic conditions and occult conditions, by all sorts of misdirected mind states. And people who are out of balance in lower mind are easily taken over by obsessional thoughts, dark worldviews, dark thinking, negativity, depression, and all sorts of states that are drawn in by these sorts of forces of thought that are out of control. And they have big effects on the physical body. Those which are inflame the mind and make it angry cause all those illnesses that are afflicted by itises, the overheating illnesses. And those which leave us feeling unloved, abandoned, rejected, uncared for, the black hole experiences that we're never getting enough from other people, from the world, lead us to cooling diseases as well. Diseases like multiple sclerosis, where we contract in from the world. Okay, let's move now to the superphysical, also known as the astral body. Now, this body here is also the cause of a great deal of our afflictions in the physical world. The astral body is very sticky. It's a sort of body that wants to attach to things. It's driven by aversions and desires, by all sorts of elementals, you know, not wanting things, liking things, obsessive preoccupation with food, sex, anything that involves the sensory life overdone or underdone. And so this body is very sticky because it either wants it and it's got to have it, and you have this sticky aversion that draws the whole of the bodies off balance, or and I should say desires as well as aversions, sticky desires, gotta have, or aversions, don't want, get away. And so it's in this sort of seesaw of desire, aversion, which disturbs very greatly the heart rhythms and the physical health. This body needs to be under constant vigilant maintenance and control by the will and true understanding and perception, so that it may be called back to the center, because there are so many sensory phenomena around the world that are constantly calling this body out into all sorts of states, particularly fear. And I can tell you what, currently fear is probably our greatest affliction. And this body is one of the great magnifiers of fear, particularly if in the intuition we've had experiences in many existences of fear. This body will trigger into those and enlarge them. And that is why it's very important that the soul life be healed first through the being, and the will being realigned with the light and breathing in balance, equipoise, uprightness, as we see represented in this beautiful luminous cross. And as the breath becomes rhythmical, then the divine breath can move through from the will to the being to the soul, higher mind, etheric, lower mind, and help this astral body to become calm. And finally, we come to the physical body, which I don't have to describe too well to you because you can see it and touch it and you live in it. But this physical body is the repository of all the materials that move down through here. And so many of the afflictions in the physical body, especially of the organs, need to be addressed up here in the will and in the soul and in the higher mind and the etheric body, not down here by constant physical interventions. The conditions in the physical body here that can be addressed best by a pure diet and pure living a good life, not living a negative, unhealthy life, avoiding all the obvious things that are bad for us, smoking, alcohol. These sorts of illnesses that are just more superficial can be addressed by those factors and by some very beautiful interventions that can happen in healing, holistic healing. But the deeper problems must start and be addressed here in the will. And so, in summary, when we're talking about holistic healing, we're talking about understanding first that you are a complex organism. You are a complex mystery of divinity, and that you actually have 7 bodies that need healing. And it is always best to go back to the center, to the being, to the will, to the spirit. And that's, of course, the purpose of things like meditation, of prayer, of rebalancing oneself in nature, of feeling the rhythm of the universe, feeling that heart resonance of the universe, the breathing rhythm of the universe, and rebalancing so that our perception may be healed and our intuition accessed with strength and balance, our understanding illumined, which will then strengthen the higher mind. And as we breathe these healing streams through, the etheric will start to heal as our hearts are open to the breath of divinity. And through that, the lower mind, the superphysical and the physical will come back into health and well-being. And so may holistic health and well-being be your gift, because it is your inheritance.